The ocean was flat, too flat. When we found the ship, it looked empty. No crew, no damage, just drifting under a fog that never moved. But the moment we stepped on board, the walls started to hum. Not like machines, like something alive. Every door led back to the same hallway. The same dripping sound, the same footprints, wet and fresh. We thought we were alone. Until the intercom whispered, "Integration successful." We ran for the deck, but the sea wasn't dark anymore. It was glowing, blue, like it was breathing. And when I looked over the railing, I saw my own reflection, smiling back at me. Beat. We never left that ship. The sea was calm the morning they found the Marigold. A gray calm, the kind that looked peaceful from afar, but carried the stillness of something holding its breath. Captain Jonas Ward leaned over the rail of his salvage ship, the Harlow, his gloved hands gripping the rusted railing. Through the fog, the shape of the derelict appeared, a black silhouette rising from the Atlantic mist, tilting slightly, like a carcass leaning toward its grave. "She's real," murmured Mason, his first mate, binoculars pressed to his face. "Son of a bitch. The Marigold actually exists." Jonas didn't reply. He already knew it existed. He'd been chasing it for 15 years. The Marigold had disappeared in 1998. A private research vessel, 30 nautical miles off the Maine coast. All hands lost. No distress call. Just gone. Until today. Jonas adjusted the brim of his cap, the wind biting his cheeks. "Get the team ready. We board at first light." Mason nodded, but his face stayed pale. "You sure about this, Cap?" "That ship's been under a long time." Jonas looked back at him, eyes bloodshot but steady. "So have I." They moored beside the Marigold an hour later. The hull groaned as the Harlow nudged against it, a hollow, almost human sound. The crew of 6 prepared for boarding, all professionals, men and women who'd seen wrecks before. But this one was different. The ocean around it felt wrong. No birds, no sound except the whisper of waves against steel. "Looks like she's waiting for us," said Anna, their dive tech, adjusting her camera rig. Jonas only grunted. "Then let's not keep her waiting." The boarding ramp clanged against the deck with a deep, echoing ring. Jonas stepped across first. The metal felt slick beneath his boots, covered in salt and moss. He could smell rust, and something faintly sweet, like rotting flowers. The deck was empty, save for the remains of a lifeboat, torn in half, ropes stiff with salt. "God," whispered Mason. "How the hell is it still floating?" Jonas didn't answer. He was already staring toward the bridge. The captain's wheelhouse, its windows dark, shapes moving faintly inside when the fog shifted. Inside, everything was frozen in time. Coffee cups sat half full, papers scattered across the chart table, edges brittle. A chair knocked over as if someone had stood too fast, years ago. Anna moved her camera slowly, recording. "Feels like they just left." Jonas brushed dust from a logbook. The cover read, "RMS Marigold, Research Log 042. He opened it. The first page was soaked through, but halfway down, the ink was still legible. Day 19. The signal grows louder. Coordinates confirmed. But the crew are hearing things below deck. Jonas froze. "Cap," Mason said softly, but Jonas didn't answer. His fingers trembled slightly as he turned the next page. Day 22. The ocean speaks in waves. We've stopped sleeping. The sound came then, a deep, wet thud echoing from below deck. Everyone turned. Probably debris, Anna whispered. Another thud. Louder, slower. Then a voice, distant, echoing up through the rusted corridor. Help. Me. Jonas's pulse spiked. He dropped the logbook, his boots ringing on the metal floor as he moved toward the sound. "Captain, wait!" Mason called. Jonas didn't stop. His flashlight cut through the dark, the beam catching on narrow hallways slick with condensation. The smell down here was stronger, decay and seawater and something metallic. The sound came again, a dragging, rhythmic noise like chains being pulled across the floor. Jonas followed it to the lower cargo hold. The door hung ajar. Inside, darkness. He lifted his light and saw footprints. Wet ones. Fresh. "Someone's down here," Jonas said. Mason's voice came faintly from the radio. "Impossible, Cap. The ship's been ghosted 20 years. Jonas stepped inside. The beam shook in his hand. There were old crates stacked along the bulkhead, broken, warped. But in the middle of the room, a single, untouched diving suit stood upright, helmet on, the glass visor fogged from the inside. Jonas froze, then the visor cleared. A hand pressed against the glass from within. He stumbled back, heart hammering. The suit fell forward, collapsing in a burst of dust and seawater. Empty. He stared, chest heaving. Then, from the radio, a whisper. Faint, garbled, but unmistakably human. "Jonas," he jerked the radio to his mouth. "Who is this? Identify yourself." "You left me." Static swallowed the signal. They regrouped topside an hour later. No one spoke much. Anna replayed her camera footage, but every time the light hit that diving suit, the image warped, flickered. Her voice came through distorted. "See that? There's someone." Then nothing. Jonas stared at the fog. His reflection in the cabin window looked pale, hollow. He remembered a voice, years ago, screaming through a radio, cut off mid-sentence. A diver's voice. His brother's voice. Mason broke the silence. "Cap, you look like you've seen a ghost." Jonas didn't answer. His hand still trembled. "I buried that ship," he whispered. 15 years ago. Anna frowned. "What do you mean?" Jonas's eyes lifted, haunted. The Marigold wasn't lost to a storm. He turned toward the dark horizon, his reflection vanishing as the light died behind the clouds. "It was lost because of me." The fog thickened overnight. It wasn't natural fog, not the kind that rolls with the tides or drifts off the water. It clung to the Harlow like breath on glass, swallowing light, sound, and reason. By dawn, no one could see 20 feet off the bow. The world had vanished into gray. Jonas stood alone on deck, the ocean whispering beneath the metal hull. He hadn't slept. He couldn't. The sound of that voice, his brother's voice, still echoed through his radio headset, each syllable replaying in his mind like static caught on repeat. "You left me." Mason emerged from below deck, a thermos of coffee in his shaking hand. "Nothing but fog," he muttered. "Radar's blind. GPS too." Jonas took the thermos but didn't drink. "Engine status?" "Running clean. But the power draw keeps spiking every 40 minutes, like something's leaching from the line." Jonas frowned. "How's that possible? We're not even running the winches yet." "Yeah," Mason said, eyes hollow. "That's the weird part." Below deck, the crew gathered around the central operations table. Anna scrolled through sonar readings, her face lit by the cold blue glow of the monitor. Each ping revealed the same image. The Marigold, lying perfectly still in the water beside them, and something below her, something large. "What is that?" she murmured. Jonas leaned closer. "It's too deep to be debris." "What's the depth?" 237 feet, she said, squinting. Metal density. Could be the anchor or a second hull section. Jonas stared at the blurred mass. It pulsed faintly as though breathing. He rubbed the back of his neck. Mark it. We'll send the drone down at noon. At 11:47 a.m., the fog broke enough for daylight to touch the deck. A gray, heavy daylight that seemed reluctant to stay. The crew gathered at the stern as Anna lowered the submersible drone into the water. The video feed flickered to life on a monitor. Grainy, ghostly light illuminated drifting plankton and silent fish. The drone descended slowly, the pressure gauge ticking upward. 50 feet. 80. 120. At 170 feet, the camera caught movement. Something metallic glinted in the dark, like part of the Marigold's underside, but cleaner. Anna adjusted the focus. That's odd. Looks like new steel. That can't be right. The drone's light panned further, revealing something impossible. A second hull, identical to the Marigold. Same structure, same damage. Perfectly mirrored, Mason swore under his breath. There's two of her? Jonas leaned closer. His reflection flickered in the monitor. No, that's not another ship. Anna looked up. Then what the hell is it? Jonas's voice dropped to a whisper. It's her reflection. The drone camera stuttered, the image fragmenting into digital snow. A voice broke through the static feed, low, distant, underwater. Jonas? Anna froze. Was that? Jonas, it's cold down here. Jonas's hand tightened around the railing. Kill the feed. Wait, Anna said. It could be. Now, she hit the switch. The screen went black. The silence that followed was heavier than before. Even the sea seemed to hold its breath. That night, the fog rolled back in, thicker, darker, alive with sound. Jonas lay awake in his cabin, the faint hum of the ship surrounding him. At 3:17 a.m., the intercom crackled. Deck watch to Captain. Jonas sat up. Go ahead. Silence. Captain, you might want to see this. He grabbed his jacket and climbed the ladder. The moment he stepped onto the deck, he froze. All along the port side, the sea was glowing. Soft blue light rippling under the surface, like bioluminescence, but too bright, too steady. Mason stood beside him, face pale. We thought it was plankton, but then the lights began to rise. Shapes moved beneath the water, dozens of them, figures, human-sized. Anna whispered, divers. Jonas's voice cracked. No one could survive down there. The figures surfaced slowly, not breaking the water, but shimmering just beneath it, translucent, like memories trapped under ice. One of them turned its face upward. Jonas staggered back. It was his brother. The eyes opened, white, glowing. You left us. The deck lights flickered, casting shadows that bent the wrong way. Anna screamed as one of the figure's hands reached through the surface, not rippling it, but passing through the steel railing. The metal corroded instantly, hissing and blackening. Inside, now! Jonas shouted. They slammed the hatch behind them, the sound of metal meeting metal echoing through the hull. Inside, the air felt electric. Every bulb flickered in unison. Then, faintly, the intercom crackled again. Bridge to Captain Ward. Jonas swallowed. Who is this? Static. Then, bridge to Captain Ward. Coordinates confirmed. The signal grows louder. Jonas froze. That wasn't one of his crew. That was a voice from the Marigold's last log entry. Anna checked the system logs, her hands shaking. There's something broadcasting through the ship's comms. Old data packets. 20 years old. Jonas stepped forward. Can you trace it? I don't think you understand, she said, voice trembling. It's coming from inside the hull. From the cargo hold. Jonas stared at her. We cleared that section. Then explain this. She hit play. The speakers filled with static, then a chorus of voices. Men, women, some crying, some whispering. Don't leave. We can't surface. The water remembers. Jonas, please. Jonas turned off the speaker with a slam. The silence afterward felt worse than the voices. At dawn, Mason found him standing in the bow, staring into the mist. His face was drawn, eyes red as if he hadn't blinked in hours. Cap, Mason said softly, we need to leave. Whatever's out here, it's not meant to be found. Jonas didn't turn around. The Marigold was my ship once. My brother was my diver. We were supposed to bring something up, something from the trench. He looked out at the fog-shrouded water. They called it the resonance. A sound the ocean makes that no one can record. Mason frowned. A sound? Jonas nodded slowly. It wasn't just sound. It was alive. It got inside the systems. Inside our heads. I heard it for weeks after the wreck. He turned to Mason, eyes hollow.
You don't stop hearing it once it knows your name. Below deck, Anna sat alone with her headset on, replaying the sonar feed.
Somewhere deep in the static, a faint rhythmic pulse emerged. Soft, almost melodic. Like a heartbeat underwater. She leaned closer. Anna, her name, whispered through 10 layers of interference. She ripped the headset off, gasping, but from the speaker, the voice kept going. Don't leave me here. She unplugged the cable, but the sound didn't stop. It kept whispering from the dead monitor, from the walls, from the hum of the ship itself. You left me in the dark. The sea keeps what you give it. Her breath came faster. She grabbed the radio, shouting, Jonas, you hearing this? No response, just static, and under it, another voice, older, slower. The captain always returns. By nightfall, the fog had turned black. The lights from both ships glowed faintly, one above, one reflected below. No one slept. Jonas sat at the helm, staring at the radio. The dial was turning on its own, clicking through dead frequencies until it found one that hummed with static, then a voice, clear, cold, and unmistakable. Marigold to Harlow. Welcome back, Captain. Jonas gripped the mic. Who is this? You left us below. Jonas's voice trembled. You're dead. The sea doesn't die, Captain. It waits. The transmission cut off. The ship groaned. A deep, unnatural creak that shook the walls. Mason ran in. Jonas, the hull, it's cracking. Jonas turned toward the porthole and saw his reflection in the glass. But it wasn't alone. His brother stood behind him, smiling. Dive with me, brother. The glass spider webbed. A thin line of seawater trickled through. Jonas whispered. It followed us home. The storm had passed by dawn, but the ocean hadn't calmed. It looked alive. Not in the way water should move, but like something breathing beneath it. Pushing and pulling the ship with invisible lungs, the Harlow drifted in a slow circle, engines running steady but directionless. The compass spun uselessly. Every attempt to chart a new heading led them back to the same coordinates. Back to where the Marigold waited. Jonas hadn't slept. Neither had anyone else. The voices had started again, not through the radio this time, but through the metal of the ship itself, like the hull was whispering. You're already below. Anna had stopped checking the sonar. Every time she powered it on, it showed something closer. Something that looked like a human shape, rising slowly from the trench. Mason was the first to break. Cap, he said that morning, pacing the bridge. We need to cut the lines and run. Whatever's out there. It's not letting us go because we're not trying hard enough. Jonas stared out at the fog that ringed the ship. I told you, I've tried. Every heading leads us back. Then maybe we're not supposed to use the ship, Mason said, desperate. Maybe we take the life raft. Jonas turned sharply. Into that? You can't see 5 feet past the rail, Mason. That fog's not fog. It's the sea's breath. The sea doesn't breathe, Mason snapped. Jonas looked at him with hollow eyes. It does when it's awake. The room went silent. Anna watched them both, her hands trembling around a mug of untouched coffee. She hadn't told them about the dreams, about waking up with seawater dripping from her hair, about hearing the sound of waves inside her head. By mid-morning, the ship's generator began to fail. The lights dimmed and flickered like lungs struggling for air. Jonas sent Mason and Anna to check the engine room. He stayed on the bridge, listening. The fog outside seemed thicker now, so thick that even the ocean's surface looked solid. Through the window, something moved, a ripple beneath the water. Then another, like footsteps. He stepped closer to the glass. Something was walking beneath the surface. A tall figure, long arms, slow movements, pale light spilling from where eyes should be. It stopped directly beneath the ship's bow. Jonas whispered, "No." The figure tilted its head upward, and though it was deep under the water, he felt it looking back. Then through the glass, a faint reflection formed beside him, another man standing shoulder to shoulder. Jonas turned. No one was there, but the reflection stayed. Smiling below deck, Mason and Anna reached the engine room. The air was damp, wrong, like it had been underwater seconds before. Condensation dripped from the ceiling in slow beads, forming puddles that trembled with every vibration of the ship. "Feels like the hull's sweating," Mason muttered. Anna knelt near the control panel. "Pressure's stable, but the coolant line's showing corrosion. Look." Mason leaned over and froze. A handprint had formed on the metal, etched like salt. It wasn't his, or hers, and it was still wet. Anna's breath quickened. "Mason, step back!" The puddle at their feet began to ripple, then stretch, forming a thin trail that crawled toward the wall like a living thing. "Jesus!" Mason stumbled back. Knocking over a wrench, the puddle reached the wall and began to climb. It spread upward in branching veins, glowing faintly blue. Anna whispered, "It's inside the ship." Then the overhead lights blew out. Total darkness. Jonas heard their screams over the intercom. He grabbed a flashlight and ran below deck, his boots slamming against the metal grating. When he reached the engine room, the air was freezing, breath visible, dripping condensation. His flashlight beam cut through the darkness, revealing Mason crouched near the door, trembling violently. "Mason!" The man looked up, eyes wide, but his pupils were gone. His irises shimmered faintly, like reflections on water. "Cap," he whispered. "It's in me." Jonas stepped closer, heart pounding. "Where's Anna?" Mason's jaw trembled. She went under." Jonas froze. "What do you mean?" Mason pointed toward the engine pit, a shallow trench where seawater sometimes pooled. Jonas shone his light there, and the beam caught her hair, floating. "Anna." He jumped down, reaching for her, but the water wasn't water anymore. It grabbed him back. Cold, impossible strength pulled him downward. For a split second, his flashlight illuminated what was below, an endless blackness that stretched deeper than the ship's hull. Then a face appeared beneath him. Anna's bitter eyes glowed, and when she opened her mouth, seawater poured out, whispering, "You're already drowning." Jonas wrenched free, gasping, crawling out of the pit. The water didn't rise after him. It retreated, like something intelligent had chosen to let him go. Mason's breathing was ragged. "Kep, we can't fight this." Jonas wiped the salt water from his face. "We're not fighting it. We're going to end it." "How?" Jonas looked toward the ceiling, toward the bridge. "The transmitter. The same one that brought us here. It's a beacon, remember? It's what called us. Maybe if we overload it, we cut the signal." Mason finished, trembling. "Exactly." He turned to the pit again. "If she's still alive, we'll get her back. But first, we end the sound." They reached the bridge 10 minutes later, both soaked, both shivering. Jonas powered up the transmitter manually, the old radio sparking and hissing. The static filled the air, not ordinary static, but layers of overlapping whispers, voices calling names. Voices they knew. Mason. Jonas. You came back. Mason covered his ears. Make it stop. Jonas shouted over the noise. The override switch! Red lever by the console! Mason pulled it. The lights dimmed. The sound deepened. A low pulsing hum that vibrated through their bones. Then the radio burst to life. A clear, cold transmission. Marigold to Harlow. Signal complete. Integration successful. Jonas froze. What did it say? Integration successful. The compass stopped spinning. Outside, the fog began to part, but not to reveal the sky. It revealed another ship, the Harlow. An exact reflection, floating upside down beneath the water, perfect in every detail. Its lights flickered in unison with theirs. Its movements mirrored every sway. Jonas whispered, That's not possible. The reflection's bridge lights flared, and they could see themselves standing inside it. But in that mirrored world, their reflections were smiling. Mason staggered back, hyperventilating. They're us. They're us, Jonas. The radio crackled. Captain Ward. Jonas's stomach turned. No. Come below, Captain. We've been waiting. The reflection's light pulsed once. Then again, Jonas turned to Mason. I need you to shut it down. What? The generator, the beacon, everything. If we keep the power on, it stays connected. Mason hesitated. And if we shut it off? Then maybe it lets go. He grabbed his flashlight and headed for the lower decks before Mason could stop him. The lower corridors were flooding now, seawater seeping through unseen cracks, running uphill, ignoring gravity. The lights buzzed overhead, dim and erratic. Jonas followed the sound, not the mechanical hum of the ship, but the whisper that echoed from the cargo bay. Jonas, come home. The air grew heavier with every step. When he reached the cargo hold, the water was knee-deep, and standing in it, Anna. She turned slowly, her face pale, eyes glowing faint blue. Anna? He said softly. She smiled faintly. It's so quiet down here. So peaceful. You're not... He started, but stopped. Her reflection in the water didn't match her movements. It was speaking, mouthing words he couldn't hear. Jonas raised his flashlight, shaking. What do you want from us? Anna's voice layered, human and something else beneath it. We want to remember. Remember what? The surface. The water around her began to rise, not from the floor, but from nowhere. It wrapped around her, lifting her like a tide made of light. Then the reflection in the water spoke, perfectly audible now. Join us, Captain. The sea forgets nothing. The ship shook violently, a deep rumble that felt like the heartbeat of something colossal. Jonas stumbled backward, clutching the railing as the lights burst above him. The water rose higher. Anna's body dissolved into the glow. Then came the voice, not hers, not human at all. Ancient, vast, and full of memory. You heard us once. You'll hear us always, Jonas shouted. You can't have me. The reflection of himself in the water looked up and smiled. You already gave yourself away. The water surged upward. On the bridge, Mason slammed the final switch. The power cut. Everything went black. For a moment, only the sound of the sea remained. Then, silence. When the fog cleared the next morning, there was no sign of the Marigold. And only one ship floated there, the Harlow, empty, drifting in perfect circles. The fog lay over the North Atlantic like a sheet of bruised glass. A faint hum threaded through the air, low, pulsing, mechanical, but somehow alive. From the bridge of the Raven 3, Lieutenant Claire Mendez watched the shape ahead. A research trawler drifting without power, hull streaked with salt and time. That's her, said the navigator. The Harlow. For 3 days, the Harlow had broadcast a repeating SOS with no voice attached. Coordinates unchanged. Signal strength steady. Impossible for a ship without power. Claire's stomach twisted as she studied the black silhouette through the fog. She'd read the case file. Salvage vessel, 3 crew lost at sea 2 weeks ago. All hands presumed dead. But the signal kept repeating. "We board, recover any logs, check for survivors," she ordered. "Then we're out." The Raven 3 drew alongside. Metal kissed metal with a dull groan. Ropes were thrown, ladders clanged, and for a moment the 2 ships breathed together like uneasy twins. Inside the boarding corridor, every sound became a whisper. Claire's boots clicked against damp steel as she led her team, Technician Reed, Medic Dawson, and Junior Diver Halpern, into the dark belly of the Harlow. The air smelled of rust, salt, and something faintly electrical, like burned ozone. Reed swept his flashlight in an arc. "Power grid's dead," he muttered. "But there's a hum in the walls. You hear that?" They all did. A deep vibration, steady as a heartbeat, moving through the deck plates. Dawson checked her scanner. "No life signs," Halpern swallowed. "Then what's making that noise?" Claire didn't answer. Her light found a set of footprints leading down the passage, bare, water slick, heading deeper into the ship. The mess hall was pristine. Plates set neatly, chairs upright, as if the crew had simply stood up mid-meal and walked away. On the wall, a single message had been scrawled in grease pencil. "The water is listening." Reed's voice cracked through the radio. "Cap, I'm picking up residual heat in the cargo deck." "Maybe an engine fire," Claire frowned. "Negative. The hull's cold as ice." "Then what the hell?" A sharp pop cut his sentence. The lights flickered once. Then the ship sighed, a long wet exhale that came from everywhere at once. They reached the bridge. Control panels were powered but offline. No current, no external supply. Yet the instruments glowed faintly blue, like light trapped underwater. Reed ran diagnostics. "All systems looped. Whatever signal she's sending, it's not from our world." Claire turned toward the window. Beyond the fog, the ocean looked wrong. Flat, still, reflective. In that mirrored surface, she saw the Raven 3 behind them, and below it, another shape. An upside-down Harlow. Her pulse quickened. "Reed, record this." He raised his camera. The reflection blinked, not the ship. The reflection itself. They retreated below deck. Every corridor seemed longer than before, repeating turns like a maze. The hum in the walls shifted pitch, syncing with their footsteps. Halpern stopped suddenly. "Did you hear that?" From somewhere aft came the faint clang of a door opening. Then a voice over the intercom, dry, distorted, male. "Bridge to captain. Signal clear." Claire froze. "That's a voice transmission." "But there's no one." "Integration successful," the same words repeated, slower, almost sung. Halpern backed into the wall. "Who's saying that?" Reed swallowed. "Playback from the Marigold." "That's 20-year-old data." The hum deepened. Something heavy moved in the deck beneath their feet, a slow, dragging weight. They reached the engine room. Dawson knelt by a console half submerged in seawater. "The bulkheads are leaking from inside out," she whispered. Reed pointed to the walls. "Look." Veins of glowing blue water spread through the steel, pulsing faintly. Inside them, shapes shifted, like tiny faces pressed against glass. Claire's throat tightened. "Back to the ladder now!" But the ladder was gone. Where metal rungs had been, water now poured upward, defying gravity, coiling like a serpent toward the ceiling. Reed screamed, stumbling back. "What is that?" The water formed a shape, tall, skeletal, luminous. Eyes like deep-sea lanterns stared from its face. It reached forward, fingers rippling, and every light died. The lights snapped back on one by one, strobing like a heartbeat. Every flash revealed motion. Water streaming along the bulkheads, tools rattling on their hooks, the air itself trembling. The luminous figure was gone. Only the slow drip of water remained. "Head count," Claire shouted. Her voice echoed 3 times before fading. "Reed, I'm here," he gasped, shaking. It touched me. I swear to God it was inside my head. Stay calm." "Dawson, status." The medic crouched by Halpern, whose nose was bleeding. "He's conscious." But listen. From the walls came a whisper that wasn't theirs. A chorus of overlapping voices, men and women, young and old. Down below. "Below. Dawson's scanner flickered. Thermal signatures everywhere. "But they're in the walls." Claire forced a breath. "We're leaving." "Up ladder 4. Move." They sprinted through the corridor, the sound following them. A dragging rhythm like bare feet slapping metal, always just behind. At the mid-deck stairwell, Reed froze. Someone stood at the top. A man in a soaked captain's coat, head bowed, water dripping steadily onto the steps. "Captain Ward?" Claire whispered. He raised his face, pale, expressionless, eyes shining with deep-sea light. Then he smiled. "You came back." Reed fired a flare instinctively. The red flash cut through the misted air, and where the captain had stood was only a wall of water, collapsing down the stairs like a living wave. It hit them hard, icy and heavy. They fell, tumbling into the darkness below. When Claire awoke, her wrist monitor blinked 02:17 a.m. Her team lay scattered in the cargo bay, ankle-deep in seawater. The Harlow's hum was gone. Instead came a faint ticking sound, rhythmic and deliberate. Tick, tick, tick. Reed stirred. "That's coming from the recorder." He pulled a black box, salvage grade, old and scarred, from beneath the console. Its indicator light still pulsed faintly. Claire wiped salt from her eyes. "Play it," the speaker hissed. Then a voice, calm, distant, and wet with static. "This is Captain Jonas Ward of the salvage vessel Harlow. The sea remembers. If you find this recording, you are already inside it." Silence. Then the ticking resumed, except it wasn't a machine. It was coming from beneath the floor. They pried up a panel. Cold air surged out, reeking of brine. Below was a crawl space, narrow, black, and full of standing water. Halpern, pale and shaking, shone his flashlight down. Figures moved under the surface, slowly, rhythmically, hands pressing against the underside of the metal. Dawson gagged. "There are people under there." Reed leaned closer, horrified. "No." "Those are reflections." The hands began to knock. 3 slow raps, then 3 more. Claire whispered, "Morse code." "What's it saying?" Reed translated under his breath. "Letusbreathe." The water surged upward, smashing through the panel. Every light went out. In the dark, Claire heard voices, her crew calling her name from every direction. She ran, flashlight beam shaking across twisted corridors that no longer matched the schematics. Each doorway led deeper, not higher, and the hum was back, louder now, shaped like a heartbeat. She burst into the bridge. The reflection of the sea outside was glowing again, brighter than moonlight. In it she saw the Raven 3, and inside its reflection, her team waving. "Reed!" "Dawson!" she screamed. They smiled from the mirrored glass, perfectly still. Then their eyes opened, white as coral. "You hear us now?" they whispered from beneath the waterline. The radio sparked to life. Marigold to Harlow. "Integration complete." Claire staggered back. No, we cut the power." The compass spun, then froze, pointing straight down. Through the window, the ocean parted. Below the ship lay a city of lights, infinite and pulsing like veins. Buildings of coral and steel, all inverted, reaching toward her. And among them, human shapes drifting, eyes open, mouths moving in silent prayer. "Breathe," the hull groaned. Water poured through the vents. She clung to the railing as the bridge filled, gasping for air that no longer existed. The last thing she saw was her reflection in the glass. smiling back. Then the sea swallowed the light. The storm had passed, but the ocean hadn't forgiven. Gray water rolled beneath a bruised sky, and through the mist the Raven 3 drifted, empty, silent. Its nameplate half torn by salt, Commander Elias Rowe, lead investigator for the Maritime Recovery Division, watched from the deck of his helicopter as it circled the wreck. From above, the ship looked almost peaceful, a dark scar on a motionless sea. Inside, sensors showed faint electrical activity, impossible after 2 weeks adrift. "No life signs," the pilot said. "But something's still humming down there." Elias pressed his headset tighter. "Patch me into the recorder channel," a hiss. Then a voice, soft, genderless, distorted by water. "Integration complete." The words looped once before fading into static. Elias closed his eyes. The same phrase had come from the Harlow months earlier. They boarded at dawn. Every surface of the Raven 3 glittered with condensation, as if the metal itself was sweating. The air tasted metallic and cold. The ship felt awake. Elias led his small team. Data technician Mira Chen and engineer Rafael Ortiz through the main corridor. Flashlights flickered off wet walls and hanging wires. Somewhere deep within, something ticked, rhythmic, mechanical, too steady to be random. Mira wiped fog from her visor. "Recorder's still active. Battery shouldn't last this long. Maybe it's feeding from the ship's core," Ortiz said. "But how's the core online with no crew?" Elias didn't answer. He'd seen this before, once on the Harlow's last transmission logs. The same ticking, the same impossible glow behind dead panels. They reached the bridge. Everything was frozen mid-motion. Coffee cup half filled, chair pulled out, logbook open to a half-written sentence. Mira read it aloud. "Signal detected beneath coordinates. Not human." The rest dissolved into smears of ink. Outside, the fog pressed against the windows like hands. Ortiz bent beside a console. "Sir, this display's been looping a single feed." He tapped the screen. Static cleared, revealing a grainy live cam of the Raven 3's deck. But the timestamp said 03 days ahead. Elias stared. "That's not playback?" Ortiz shook his head. "It's broadcasting from the future, or..." The monitor flickered again. Now the feed showed them, standing in the bridge, looking at the screen. Then one by one, their reflections turned to face the camera. Not them. Their reflections. Smiling. The screen went black. They moved to the engine room, descending through dripping stairwells that seemed longer than before. The ship groaned around them, metal bending like breath. Mira whispered, "Do you hear that?" At first Elias thought it was wind. Then he realized. It was singing, low and distant, like a choir underwater, notes rising and falling with the pulse of the hull. Ortiz gripped his wrench tighter. "I swear it's saying words. We breathe. For you." They froze. The sound was coming from inside the walls. Elias found the data core at the center of the room, a tall glass cylinder glowing faint blue. Bubbles drifted within it, but not air bubbles. Faces, dozens of faint, human faces, their mouths opening and closing in silent rhythm. Mira stepped closer. "Is this liquid storage?" "No," Elias murmured. "It's recording media." Each face blinked at once. The deck shuddered. Metal screamed as if something huge moved beneath them. Water seeped up through the cracks, warm and trembling. Mira's scanner spiked. "Electromagnetic surge from below the ship!" They ran to the viewing port. Beneath the Raven 3's hull, the ocean wasn't dark. It glowed. A spiral of light deep below, spinning like an eye, opening. The hum in the walls rose in pitch. The glass cylinder pulsed brighter. The faces inside began speaking. "Return what was taken. The sea remembers." Elias staggered back. "Shut it down!" Ortiz yanked the power relay. The light died. and the entire ship exhaled. A gust of wind rushed through every corridor, extinguishing lamps, killing the sound. Silence. Then Mira whispered, "Sir, look at the glass." Condensation had formed words across the cylinder. "You came home." They fled upward, every step echoing in time with their own heartbeats. At the main hatch, Elias looked back once. The glow from the core had returned, brighter, pulsating like a beacon. It wasn't shutting down, it was calling. They sealed the hatch, radioed for extraction, and climbed into the open air. The sky above was pale gray, but the ocean below had turned perfectly still, a mirror once again. In its reflection, the Raven 3 looked untouched. No fog, no scars. And in the mirrored version, figures stood on deck, watching them leave. Mira's voice trembled. "Sir, who's that?" Elias didn't answer. They reached the rescue helicopter just before sunset. The pilot looked pale as he scanned the horizon. "What took you so long?" "You were gone 4 hours," Elias frowned. "We boarded at 10:00. He checked his watch. 10:37 a.m. The pilot turned the dial toward him. The copter's clock read 18:42, 6 hours missing. Elias said nothing. He only stared out the window as the Raven 3 shrank behind them. Small and patient against the water. The debrief 2 days later. In a windowless lab in Portsmouth, the recovery team analyzed the data drive Mira had salvaged. The file was labeled Harlow, Maine, Raven Sub, Meridian. "Looks like the 2 ship logs merged," said Ortiz. He ran the footage. Grainy video filled the screen, the Harlow's deck under fog. Then, frame by frame, the image distorted until the hull markings changed. Now it was the Raven 3, Mira whispered. "It's stitching them together." One ship becoming the other. On the speakers, a single voice played. Neither male nor female, deep as the ocean floor. "We do not drown. We become." Elias felt his chest tighten. The pitch of the sound matched the hum he'd heard in the walls. It wasn't random vibration. It was speech. Night shift that evening, the lab lights dimmed for power maintenance. Mira stayed behind, headphones on, isolating the frequencies. At 02:11 a.m. she froze. Under the hum she heard another sound, breathing, then a whisper directly in her ear, though no one stood behind her. "Mira Chen, you were chosen to breathe for us." The monitors flared blue. Her reflection in the glass looked up, but the reflection's mouth was smiling. When the others arrived the next morning, Mira was gone. Her chair sat empty. Her headset played a constant drip of water. Elias's vision by day 3, the division sealed the investigation, calling it equipment failure. But Elias couldn't sleep. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw the Harlow's coordinates repeating like a heartbeat on his phone's GPS. Impossible, offline, yet pulsing. At dawn, he returned to the pier alone. The sea was flat as steel. In the distance, something floated, a buoy, glowing faintly blue. He took a skiff out, windless, the world silent except for the oars. When he reached the buoy, he realized it wasn't metal. It was a helmet. Mira's. Inside the visor, words etched in salt. "The sea remembers." The final recording back at headquarters, Ortiz found Elias's office empty. Only the black recorder sat on the desk, its red light blinking. He pressed play. "This is Commander Elias Rowe, Recovery Division. We believe the sea took lives. We were wrong. It takes memory. It makes room. Every ship that finds the signal becomes part of the host. The Harlow, the Raven. Soon there'll be more. We never left the water. We only think we did." A soft creak echoed behind him, the sound of dripping onto tile. Ortiz turned. The floor shimmered with a thin layer of seawater. His reflection in it blinked once, smiled, and mouthed the same words from the tape. "Integration successful." The recorder clicked off. The lights flickered blue, and somewhere beneath the lab, deep pipes began to hum in time with the tide. Epilogue. Signal. Repeat weeks later, a fishing vessel 200 miles off Nova Scotia reported interference on marine radio. A repeating transmission cut through every frequency. This is the Raven 3. Request assistance. We hear you breathing. Then silence. Only the hum remained.